In 373 BCE, an entire city disappeared overnight. Not abandoned, not conquered, vanished, swallowed by the earth and lost beneath the sea. For centuries, scholars whispered its name, Helike. Some claimed it was the real-world inspiration for Atlantis. Others dismissed it as legend. But what if I told you it was real? This isn't just another lost city story. Helike's fate is a warning, one that echoes across time. What happened that night? And why did it take over 2 millennia to find it? To understand, we must go back to a time when Helike stood as a beacon of power, wealth, and divine favor. Helike wasn't just any Greek city. It was a powerhouse, the leader of the Achaean League, a key player in Mediterranean trade, and a city that commanded respect. Its streets bustled with merchants, scholars, and warriors, all thriving under the watchful gaze of their protector, Poseidon, god of the sea and earthquakes. In the heart of Helike stood a grand temple, one of the most revered in all of Greece. Pilgrims traveled from far and wide to offer gold, silver, and sacrifices, hoping to earn Poseidon's favor. The city believed it was untouchable, blessed by the very god who ruled the oceans. But that arrogance came at a cost. Legend has it that Helike's rulers denied sanctuary to a group of Ionian exiles who sought Poseidon's protection. They turned them away. They defied the god they worshipped. And then, the signs began. The air grew heavy. Birds abandoned their nests. The waters of the nearby Gulf of Corinth trembled without cause. Farmers spoke of cattle acting strangely, refusing to eat, their instincts sensing something their human masters could not. The people of Helike ignored these omens. Then, in the dead of night, it happened. First came the tremors, subtle at first, barely enough to wake the sleeping citizens. Then, in an instant, the earth roared to life. Eyewitness accounts from nearby cities describe an earthquake so violent that the ground itself turned to liquid, a process we now know as soil liquefaction. Buildings collapsed, streets split apart. Entire homes were swallowed into the earth. But that was only the beginning. From the Gulf of Corinth, a monstrous wave rose, a tsunami, towering like an executioner's blade. With terrifying speed, it rushed inland, engulfing Helike in a matter of minutes. The once great city was wiped from existence. There were no survivors. The wave carried bodies, statues, and even the massive bronze idol of Poseidon, dragging them into the depths. When the sun rose the next morning, Helike was gone. The land where it stood had become an empty lagoon. For centuries, Helike's fate haunted historians and storytellers. Greek philosopher Strabo wrote of a city swallowed by the sea, warning that nature could erase even the mightiest of civilizations. Pausanias, another ancient writer, spoke of fishermen who, centuries later, would cast their nets into the Gulf and pull up strange relics from the past, fragments of Helike hidden beneath the waters. And then came Plato. Just a few decades after Helike's fall, Plato wrote of another sunken civilization, Atlantis, a powerful city punished by the gods, lost beneath the sea. Was he inspired by Helike? Many believe so. But here's where the mystery deepens. Unlike Atlantis, Helike was real. So why did it take 2,300 years to find its ruins? For centuries, explorers, archaeologists, and even treasure hunters searched for Helike beneath the waves. But they were all looking in the wrong place, because Helike wasn't just swallowed by the sea. It was buried. What really happened that night, and what finally led to its rediscovery? For over 2,300 years, Helike remained nothing more than a ghost story, a cautionary tale whispered by historians, a lost city swallowed by time. Explorers scoured the seabed of the Gulf of Corinth, convinced they would find its ruins beneath the waves. But decade after decade, nothing. Some began to doubt if Helike had ever existed at all. Then, in the 1990s, one woman refused to give up the search. Meet Dr. Dora Katsinopoulou, an archaeologist who believed everyone had been looking in the wrong place. Instead of searching underwater, she had a radical theory. What if Helike wasn't in the sea, but buried beneath the land itself? Using ground-penetrating radar and ancient texts as her guide, she and her team focused their efforts inland, digging through layers of mud, silt, and rock that had accumulated over millennia. And then, one day, they struck stone. As the excavations continued, the past began to emerge. Walls, pottery, coins bearing the emblem of Poseidon. Then, the ultimate proof, the remains of an entire city, perfectly preserved beneath centuries of sediment. Helike had not been lost to the sea. The earthquake and tsunami had buried it under thick layers of silt, preserving its streets, its artifacts, and its secrets. It was one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. But with this discovery came new questions. Did Helike inspire Atlantis? For centuries, scholars debated whether Plato's legendary Atlantis was based on truth or pure allegory. But consider this. Helike was a powerful city, destroyed overnight by a great disaster. It was swallowed by water, its ruins hidden for centuries. Plato wrote about Atlantis just a few decades after Helike disappeared. Coincidence? Or was Atlantis simply a distorted memory of Helike's fall? Many historians believe that Plato, inspired by the real tragedy of Helike, may have woven it into his own grand allegory, exaggerating its scale, mythologizing its destruction, and turning it into a lesson about hubris and divine punishment. And if that's true, then Atlantis was never a utopian paradise. It was a warning. But perhaps the most unsettling part of Helike's story isn't its connection to Atlantis. It's what it reveals about our own future. The warning. We must not ignore Helike was not the first city to be swallowed by nature, and it won't be the last. What happened in 373 BCE wasn't a freak event. It was part of a pattern. Soil liquefaction, the process that caused Helike to sink, still threatens modern coastal cities today. Massive earthquakes and tsunamis have destroyed entire civilizations throughout history. Scientists warn that rising sea levels and climate change could put major cities, like New York, London, and Los Angeles, at risk of a similar fate. We like to think we've conquered nature, that our skyscrapers, dams, and seawalls make us untouchable. Helike thought the same. It was erased in a single night. What would happen if, tomorrow, an earthquake struck off the west coast of the US? If a tsunami surged toward Tokyo? If another Helike, another Atlantis, was swallowed by the sea? Because here's the truth. Helike is not just history. It is a prophecy. Helike's ruins now sit in silent testimony beneath the earth, a reminder of what was lost and a warning of what could come. For centuries, people searched for Atlantis, believing it was the greatest mystery of the ancient world. But in the end, the real story was buried right beneath our feet. Helike was never a myth. It was real. It was powerful. And then, it was gone. And if history has taught us anything, it's this. No civilization is too great to fall. The question is, when will we listen?